I heard the words before I saw the faces. They came from behind the fence. Light and cold at the same time. Why does she keep coming? Someone said. Then a small laugh, like a spoon tapping glass. I stood still with a warm dish in my hands. It was apple crumble, fresh from my oven. The smell was sweet. But my stomach turned. I could have turned around. I could have gone back to my car. But I did not. I took one slow breath and walked in, as if I belonged there. Because I did. The backyard was full of people. There were paper plates, bright cups, and loud music. My son, Mark, stood near the grill with a drink in his hand. His wife, Sophie, moved through the crowd like she owned the day. Some people were family. Some were friends I did not know. I saw my granddaughter, Nina, near the swing set. She was taller now, with her hair in a loose tie. She looked at me for a second and then looked away. That hurt more than the words behind the fence. Sophie noticed me first. Her smile was thin, like a folded napkin. "Oh, Ellen," she said. "We didn't think you were coming." Her voice was the same voice from behind the fence. I held up the dish. "I brought dessert," I said. No one reached for it. No one said thank you. I walked to the far end of the long table and set it down myself. I pulled out a chair and sat. The chair was light and unsteady. My back ached, but I sat straight. Mark raised his cup at some point. "To family," he said. Glasses clinked. People cheered. No one looked at me. I watched them talk, laugh, and eat. I watched Nina run past me twice, then 3 times. She did not stop. She did not say hello. I remembered when she used to run to me at the door. She used to smell like crayons and shampoo. She used to call me Nana and ask for cookies. Sophie came over later and leaned close. "Do you want a plate?" she asked, like she was doing a favor. "I'm fine," I said. She nodded fast and walked away. I stayed until the end of the party. I helped clear plates because my hands needed something to do. I folded napkins. I wiped sticky spots on the table with a wet paper towel. People walked inside without me. They did not say goodbye. When my dish was empty, I picked it up and carried it back to my car. The crumble dish was warm from the sun, not from love. That night, at home, I washed the dish and dried it with care. My kitchen was quiet. For years, I filled silence with noise. I turned on the TV. I played the radio. I called Mark just to hear his voice. But that night, I did none of it. I made 1 cup of tea. I sat at my small table by the window. The same table where Mark once did homework. Back then, he needed me. Now, he only allowed me near, like a distant neighbor. I looked around my house and saw the past in every corner. I moved here 40 years ago. I painted the walls. I fixed the sink. I paid bills on time, even when money was tight. And then, 5 years ago, Mark asked for help to buy their house. Just to get started, he said. I took money from my old savings account, $38,000. I said it was a gift. I said I trusted him. I believed family meant something. I did not ask for my name on the papers. I did not ask for promises in writing. I thought love was enough. The next morning, I opened my filing cabinet. I found the folder I labeled Mark House. I had not touched it in years. Inside were papers and copies and a letter I wrote to the bank. In my letter, I wrote, "This is a gift. No repayment expected." I read that line and felt my face grow hot. I did not feel anger first. I felt shame. I had made it easy for them to take, and easy for them to forget. I did not call Mark. I called someone else. Her name was Priya Patel. She was a lawyer in town. I met her once at a community class about wills. She was calm and clear. I said I had questions about my will and my papers and a helper paper. She did not ask why. She said, "Come tomorrow. Bring what you have." That night I slept better than I had in months. Not happy sleep, but steady sleep. Like my mind had found a straight line to follow. The next day I dressed with care. Real shoes. A clean jacket. Buttons. When you plan to change your life, you show up like it matters. Priya's office smelled like coffee and paper. She read my papers and tapped her pen. "You gave the money as a gift," she said, "so you cannot take the house back." I nodded. "I know." I said. Priya looked at me and spoke gently. "But you can control what happens next. Your will. Your accounts. Your health choices. Your future." I took out another paper from my purse. A helper paper form. Mark had been the person on it for 3 years. After my fall in the bathroom, he signed the papers and said he would help if I needed it. But he never called to ask what I needed. He never came to doctor visits. I asked Priya, "Can I cancel this?" Priya said, "Yes. I can cancel it today." I heard myself say words I did not plan. "Remove him," I said. "From my will too." Priya paused. Not judging, just careful. "Do you want to cut him out fully?" she asked. I thought of the backyard. I thought of the laugh. I thought of years of small cuts. The seat at the edge. The fast goodbyes. The birthdays with no calls. I said, "Yes. I want my life to be protected. I want self-respect, not pity." Priya printed forms. I signed them slowly. My hand did not shake. This was not revenge. It was repair. Priya asked, "Who will make decisions for you if you cannot?" I said, "Not Mark. I chose a service to help with health choices." Priya wrote it down. Then she asked, "And your home?" I said, "My home will be sold when I am gone. The money will go to Harbor Home, the women's shelter on Lake Street." Priya looked up. "Why them?" she asked. I said, "Because they help people who leave with nothing. I once needed that kind of help." Priya nodded and typed without another question. When I left her office, the air felt sharper. Not colder, sharper, like clean glass. At home. My phone blinked with a message. It was Mark. "Hey, Mom. Sophie says she might have upset you. She was tired. You know how these events are. Call me." I stared at the screen. I did not answer. I deleted the message. Then I blocked his number. That was the first time I ever blocked my own child. My chest felt tight for a moment. Then it eased. Like a belt loosened one hole. That afternoon I baked a pie. Not to share. Not for a party. Just for me. Lemon and berry. I sat on my porch and watched the street. My neighbor, Joan, walked her dog past my house. She waved and stopped. That smells good, she said. I cut 2 slices and gave one to her. She sat with me. She did not ask about Mark. She talked about her garden and the broken mailbox at the corner. We laughed. I realized I had been starving. Not for food, but for simple kindness. After Joan left, I went inside and opened a drawer in my hallway. I kept small gifts there for Nina. Stickers, tiny notebooks, cute pens. I filled that drawer for years, just in case. That day, I emptied it. I put everything in a paper bag. I carried the bag outside and set it by the donation box at the church. I watched it sit there in the sun. It felt like watching a part of my hope leave my hands. The next morning, I called a locksmith. A young man came with a toolbox. He changed my front and back locks. He did not ask questions. When he gave me the new keys, I made copies. One stayed in my purse. One went into my small safe. One I gave to Joan. One I put in my safe deposit box at the bank. That night I slept with the windows open. The night sounds were soft. For the first time, I felt safe in my own home. 2 days later, I went to my bank. The lobby was quiet. A manager named Mr. Chen met me in a glass office. I said, I want to review who has access to my accounts. He typed and looked at the screen. You have one person who can use my card, he said. Mark Allen. My son's full name looked strange on the screen, like it belonged to a stranger. Mr. Chen asked, Do you want to remove him? I said, Yes. Remove him. Cancel the card. Change the passwords. Set new security questions. Lock online access until I come in. While he worked, I stared at a small plant on his desk. Green leaves. Quiet and steady. I remembered a plant I once kept in Mark's room when he was a baby. He tried to pull the leaves and eat the soil. I laughed so hard I cried. That memory did not hurt. It was simple. It was real. I held on to it like a small stone in my pocket. When I left the bank, I did not feel proud. I felt clean. At home, I opened my fireproof box. I sorted papers. I made a folder called History. I put Mark's school papers there. Old cards. Photos. Not to destroy them, just to place them where they belonged. In the past, not in my future plans. Then I opened my address book and crossed out names. Mark. Sophie. Their shared email. Their new phone numbers. I wrote Priya Patel in clear letters. I wrote Joan next door. I wrote my doctor. I wrote my building office number. That weekend, rain came. I worked in my small garden anyway. My hands in the soil made my mind quiet. I trimmed dead flowers. I pulled weeds. I planted 3 small seeds in a corner. Not because I needed flowers, but because I wanted to mark a choice. Life can still grow in places people ignore. On Monday, I visited a real estate office. I asked about small flats. I did not need much. 1 bedroom, quiet building, ground floor if possible, a place with light. The agent showed me a simple place at Riverside Court. 2 rooms and a small balcony. It was not fancy. It felt peaceful. I filled out the form. When the agent asked, "Do you want to think about?" I did. I said, "I have been thinking for years. I will take it." I paid the deposit and chose a move-in date for the 1st of the next month. That night, my phone rang from an unknown number. I did not answer. A voicemail came. It was Sophie. Her voice was sharp. Ellen Dot. This is getting weird. Mark cannot reach you. Nina is upset. Stop playing games and call us back. I listened once, then I deleted it. They were not worried. They were losing control. That is different. 2 days later, Mark showed up at my door. I saw his car before I heard the knock. He knocked twice. Then he called through the door. "Mom, please, just talk to me." I sat on my couch. My hands rested in my lap. My heart beat hard, but steady. "You changed the locks," he said. "You blocked me. What is going on?" I did not open the door. I said, "You laughed. I heard it." Silence. Then he said, "I did not know you were there." I replied, "That is the problem. You do not think I am there." He tried again. It was one bad moment. Sophie was joking. I said, "A joke needs kindness." That was not kindness. He sounded angry now. "Is this about money?" he asked. I said, "This is about self-respect." He said, "You are my mother," I answered, "and I am a person, and I am a person." Then I stopped speaking. After a long minute, he walked away. I watched from the window as he drove off. I did not feel victory. I cried for a few minutes. Then I washed my face and packed one box. Endings can hurt and still be right. Packing changed the sound of my house. Rooms echoed. The walls looked tired but calm. I went through drawers one by one. If an item made me feel weak, I let it go. If it made me feel steady, I kept it. I kept my grandmother's teacups. I kept the heavy baking spoon my late husband gave me. I kept one framed photo of Mark as a child, missing a front tooth and smiling wide. I did not keep the newer photos where he looked away from the camera, like he was already leaving. Joan came over one afternoon with soup. She sat on the floor with me among boxes. "You okay?" she asked. I said, "I am learning to be okay." She nodded. "That is a real skill." She said, "She helped me tape boxes." We talked about small things. The weather, the price of eggs, her dog's bad habits. It felt normal, and that helped. On Sunday evening, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Hi, Nana." It is Nina. My stead breath caught. "Is this still your number?" she wrote. I replied, "Yes, it is." After a minute, she wrote, "I found it in an old phone. Dad does not know." I waited. Then she wrote, "I am sorry." I did not rush to comfort her. I asked, "What are you sorry for?" She wrote, "For ignoring you. For laughing when Mom made that comment." I did not like it. but I went along. I wanted to fit in. I sat at my table and read her words again. I thought of my gift drawer. I thought of her small hand in mine years ago. I wrote back, "Thank you for saying it. Do you want to see me?" She replied fast, "Yes. Just me. Please." I wrote, "Come tomorrow after school. Just you." A few seconds later, she sent, "Okay. I promise." The next day was gray and soft with light rain. I baked banana bread. Not as a bribe. As a welcome. At 4:10, Nina knocked. She wore a hoodie too big for her and shoes with loose laces. Her eyes looked tired. When I opened the door, she stood still like she was waiting to be refused. "Hi, Nana," she said. "Hi, Nina," I answered. I stepped aside. "Come in," I said. We sat at my kitchen table. She looked around like she had not been inside my house in a long time. "Mom says you are acting crazy," she said. But her voice was not cruel. I poured tea. I said, "I am not crazy. I am choosing." She frowned. "Choosing what?" she asked. I said, "Choosing respect. Choosing peace. Choosing to stop begging for a place in a room." She nodded slowly, like she was trying to match my words to her own feelings. She held her cup with both hands. "Dad is mad," she said. I replied, "He is not used to results." Nina looked down. "I copied them," she said. I did not question it. I thought that is how you treat you. Like you are always there. So it does not matter. Her honesty landed heavy. But it was truth. And truth can hold weight without breaking you. I said, "You can come here, but not for gifts. Not for treats. Only for truth." Nina nodded. "I want that," she said. We talked about school. She told me about a teacher who talks too fast. About a friend who wants to move away after finished school. About how her home feels loud but empty. When she left, I wrapped a slice of banana bread in foil and handed it to her. She smiled. Small but real. "Thank you," she said. After she walked down my steps, I watched until she turned the corner. I graps did not feel hopeful. I felt honest. A week before my move, Sophie came to my house without calling. I heard sharp steps on the porch. The doorbell rang once. Then again, like she was pressing a point. When I opened the door, she stood there in a bright coat and hard perfume. "Ellen," she said, like my name was a file label. She stepped in before I invited her. She looked around at the boxes and the empty shelf. "So you are really doing this," she said. I closed the door and faced her. "Yes," I said. She sighed. "You are taking this too far," she said. "Mark is your son. Nina is your family. You cannot just vanish." I said, "I am not vanishing. I am finally visible to myself." Sophie's mouth tightened. "Mark says you changed your accounts," she said. "That is extreme." I replied, "What is extreme is laughing when someone is treated like they are already gone." She waved a hand. "It was one comment," she said. I answered, "It was years." The comment just made it clear. Sophie walked toward my kitchen, as if she still had right to move through my rooms. "Do you know how this looks?" she asked. People will think you are unstable, I said. Let them? I spent too long trying to look easy. She turned and pointed at a box labeled Keep. You are doing this for attention, she said, or for control. I felt my voice get firm. It's no, I said. I am doing this for safety and self-respect. Sophie leaned in. If you cut Mark out, Nina will suffer, she said. I took a breath. Nina came to me alone, I said. She is not a tool. She is a person. I will not use her. And you will not use her either. Sophie stared at me. For a moment. She had no words. Then she grabbed her purse. Fine, she said. Do what you want. I said, I am... She left. Heels loud on my porch, and the house felt calmer after the door closed. After that, I went to the post office and rented a small P.O. box. The clerk asked for a new address. I said, No, thank you. If someone truly needed to find me, they could ask with respect. I also changed my doctor's emergency contact. I made a list of my medicines and put it on the fridge. These were small tasks, but each one felt like stitching a tear in a coat. I was making myself harder to pull apart. A week later, Priya called me. Your papers are filed, she said. Your helper paper is canceled. Your will is updated. The new people who get my money are set as you asked. I said, Thank you. Priya paused. Then she said, You did a hard thing. I answered, I did a necessary thing. Move day came without ceremony. 2 movers carried my boxes. They were young and polite. I had fewer boxes than they expected. I tipped them well. I did not care about the cost. I cared about the feeling of leaving with my head up. Before I locked my old front door, I stood in the hallway and touched the wall where Mark's height marks used to be. The paint was smooth now. Time covers many things. Some coverings are mercy. Riverside Court smelled like fresh paint and clean air. My small flat was small, but it had light. A little balcony. A simple kitchen. The first thing I unpacked was my kettle. The second thing was my teacups. I placed them in the cabinet like a promise. Joan brought me a small plant as a housewarming gift. It was a tiny succulent in a white pot. Something that lives even when you forget to water it. She joked. I laughed. It felt good to laugh. Nina came 2 days later. She rode an old bike and parked it by the stairs. She carried a paper bag of jam. I found this at the store, she said. Fig and lemon. I said, That sounds brave. She smiled. We ate banana bread and jam at my small table. She looked around and said, It is quiet here. I said, Yes. Quiet can be kind. A month passed. Mark did not come. Sophie did not come. Sometimes I wondered if I should feel guilty. Then I remembered the backyard. I remembered the way my name was used like a problem. Guilt tried to visit, but I did not invite it in. Instead, I built routines. Morning tea, short walks, a weekly book club in the building lounge. I joined even though I was shy. The other women were friendly. They talked about aches and grandkids and movies. No one asked me to prove my worth. At Riverside Court, I met my neighbors slowly. There was Mrs. Alvarez on the third floor. She walked with a cane and still wore red lipstick every day. There was Devin, a young teacher with tired eyes and kind hands. There was Mr. Lewis, who fixed broken lamps for fun and gave me a spare bulb without asking. They did not know my family story. They only knew my name and my smile. That was enough. One Saturday, they invited me to coffee in the lounge. I almost said no out of habit. Then I said yes. Saying yes to safe people is also a kind of courage. We talked about simple things. The best market in town. The noisy bus route. Which window gets the best sunset? Mrs. Alvarez told a story about learning English at 60 and refusing to be embarrassed. Devin laughed and said, I still get shy every day. We laughed together. Later, as I walked back to my small flat, I felt something new. I felt being included, not as a guest who must earn a chair, but as a neighbor who belongs by default. One afternoon, a letter arrived with no return address. I knew the writing. Mark's. My hands felt cold as I opened it. The letter said he was sorry. He wrote that he let things happen. He wrote that he should have protected me. He wrote that he did not know how to fix it. He wrote that Nina talks about me now and seems lighter. I read the letter twice. Then I folded it and put it in a drawer. Not as a trophy, not as a penalty, as a record. A sign that reality had reached him. In late spring, my old house sold. I did not go back for the final walkthrough. I did not need to touch the walls again. Priya handled the papers. She called me when it was done. The sale closed, she said. The funds are in the account you set for Harbor Home. I held the phone and let the news land. I did not feel loss. I felt release. I had loved that house. But love does not mean you must stay trapped inside old rooms. Nina came over that evening. I told her. The house is sold. She looked surprised. Are you sad? She asked. I thought for a moment. I am sad for what it could have been. I said, but I am not sad for what it was at the end. Nina nodded. Then she said, Dad is having a hard time. I answered, he can have a hard time. Hard times can teach. She looked down. He keeps asking why you did this, she said. I replied, tell him the truth. Tell him it was not one day. It was a pattern. A few days later, Mark asked Nina to bring me a message. Nina came with her backpack and said, Dad wants to meet you in public, like at a cafe. I did not say yes right away. I said, does he want to listen? Or does he want to argue? Nina shrugged. I think he wants to fix it, but he is scared, she said. I nodded. Fear is not an excuse, I said, but it can be a start. I agreed to one meeting, with clear limits. 1 hour. Daytime. Public place. No Sophie. Nina smiled. Relieved, like she was watching adults finally do something wise. The cafe smelled like bread and warm milk. Mark arrived early. He looked older than last time. He stood when I walked in. Mom, he said. His voice was softer than I expected. I sat across from him. I did not hug him. I did not punish him with silence either. I simply looked at him. He swallowed. I was wrong. He said, I let Sophie talk like that. I laughed. I thought it was nothing. But it was not nothing. He rubbed his hands together. I did not know you felt so alone, he said. I answered, I told you many times. In small ways. You did not hear me because it was easier not to. He blinked fast. What do I do now? He asked. I said, You learn to see me. You learn to respect clear limits. You stop asking for quick forgiveness like it is a receipt. He nodded. Can I call you Akshas? He asked. I said, Not yet. Write if you need to speak. Show me change over time. He looked hurt, but he nodded again. Okay, he said. I will try. We finished our drinks. When we stood up, he said, Thank you for meeting me. I said, Thank you for listening. Then I walked out into the sunlight and felt steady. I had met him as an adult, not as someone begging for love. The next week, Nina came with a small drawing. It was pencil on plain paper. It showed a woman sitting at a chessboard. On one side, only 2 pieces. On the other, many pieces. But the 2 pieces were in strong places. That is you, Nina said. You are not done. You are just playing your game now. I felt tears rise, but they were not bitter tears. They were clean. I said, Can I hang it? She grinned. Yes, she said. On my birthday. There were no balloons. No big party. And that was fine. Nina came with flowers. Simple yellow flowers from a market. We made toast and tea. She gave me a card she made. On the front, she drew 2 chairs on a balcony. One chair had a teacup on the arm. The other chair was empty. Inside, she wrote, Thank you for keeping a seat for me. I held the card and felt my throat tighten. I said, Thank you for coming back with truth. That afternoon, I went to Harbor Home with Nina. She had asked about it. We met the manager. The building was plain, but warm. Women sat in a common room drinking coffee. Some looked tired. Some looked strong. Many looked both. I handed the manager an envelope. It was a donation from my account, not from my will. I did it now. I said, This is for the women who leave without shoes, without keys, without safe places. The manager's eyes filled with tears. Nina squeezed my hand. After that day, Nina started helping there once a week. She helped sort clothes. She helped serve meals. She listened. She told me it changed the way she saw the world. She said, I used to think family is always right. I said, Family is supposed to be safe. If it is not safe, you get to choose distance. Nina nodded. I think I understand now, she said. Some evenings, I sat on my balcony and watched the sun lower behind the trees. I did not miss my old house the way I expected. I missed some memories. Yes, but I did not miss waiting. I did not miss hoping to be noticed. I did not miss squeezing myself smaller to fit into someone else's story. In this small flat, my life fit me. The silence in my chest was no longer heavy. It was restful. A few months later, another message came from Mark. It was not a demand. It was one sentence. Happy holidays. Mom, I hope you are well. I did not answer right away. I sat with it. I learned that not every message needs a quick reply. Some words need to sit and show their shape. After 2 days, I wrote back, I am well. I wish you peace. That was all. I did not offer a visit. I did not offer a fight. I offered truth. And truth has clear limits. On a cold morning in early spring, I planted basil on my balcony. The first leaves were small and shy. Then they grew. They leaned toward the light like they had decided to live. Nina came over that day and said, "It smells like summer." I said, "Yes. Things can start again." She looked at my chess drawing on the wall and smiled. "You really did it," she said. I answered, "I did not do it to punish them. I did it to remember myself." One evening, Nina brought a small shoebox to my small flat. She sat on the rug and opened it. Inside were things she did not want to keep at home. A notebook. A necklace her mother did not like. A photo of us at the zoo when she was little. "I do not want to disappear," she said. I said, "You will not. Not if you tell the truth." She asked, "Do you think people change?" I said, "Some do. But change starts when they stop acting." Nina nodded. Quiet. We ate soup and watched a silly show on TV. It felt simple. And it felt right. If you ask me now why I am still here, the answer is not loud. But it is clear. I am here to say my name without shame. I am here to choose peace without apology. I am here to set my own table. I am here to leave the door open just enough for the ones who knock with clean hands. And I am here because a quiet life I built on respect is still a life worth living.